welcome to SVG-TV News for Friday, June 8th, 2018. I am Jennifer Richardson with the details. This country's Foreign Affairs Minister, Sir Louis Straker, has strongly condemned possible sanctions against Venezuela by the Organization of American States, the OAS. Pushed by the U.S., which called on Monday for the OAS to suspend Venezuela and impose new sanctions, the hemispheric body passed a resolution that can initiate the process of Venezuela's suspension. There were 19 votes in favor of the sanctions, 4 against: Bolivia, Venezuela, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and 11 countries abstained from voting. In an interview with SVG-TV News, Sir Louis said there is pressure to renounce Venezuela within the OAS regarding its internal political affairs. He, however, said that Venezuelans must be allowed to settle their matters without international intervention, as they have a democratic electoral process.
That Venezuela has held more elections than many countries in the world. And the elections are more credible than some of those who are condemning Venezuela. Because the elections there have had observers not only from the region here, but from CELAC. And they said the elections were fair and the elections were free. Now, there are those who want to keep Venezuela in line, and Venezuela must know its place. And they're trying to put pressure on Venezuela as they have done with Cuba. And I do not think that we have reached the point where we can see with them in order to put pressure on Venezuela. And I'm talking about a financial and economic pressure. We have to allow Venezuela to settle their internal differences on the basis of the Charter of the OAS and the Charter of the United Nations, that there should be non-intervention in the internal affairs of Venezuela.
So Louis said those who are calling for Venezuela's exclusion are trying to use humanitarian grounds to justify their actions.
We do not favor or sanction or support any foreign intervention or any sanction against Venezuela, because it's only going to exacerbate a situation in Venezuela where the people are suffering. And we're not going to permit any kind of guise, any ruse that any foreign power would want to get in there under the guise of humanitarian aid in order to further destabilize the government of Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro has been elected, and this is the second time he's been elected as the president of Venezuela. And we know that the election, he has been duly elected and the elections were free and fair.
The Foreign Affairs Minister also expressed concern that intervention from foreign nations will further destabilize Venezuela.
The only solution to some of the forces outside is that the only good election in Venezuela is if they remove Nicolas Maduro, when the people of Venezuela, the majority of people in Venezuela, are supporting Nicolas Maduro. So our support would remain firm for the people and the government of Venezuela. They have to decide who they want as president, and we would support any internal dialogue between the opposition and the government in order to bring about peace, stability, and prosperity in Venezuela. But we oppose any sanction that any outside government or country would impose on Venezuela, because we think these sanctions are unjustified, and we think that they would only exacerbate the situation in the country, destabilize the country, and create further hardship on the people in Venezuela.
Venezuela's ambassador to SVG, Francisco Perez Santana, has reaffirmed that recent general elections held in the South American nation were free and fair. This comes in the wake of attempts to isolate Venezuela from within the Organization of American States, citing electoral irregularities. In an interview with SVG-TV News, Ambassador Santana said that if the Caribbean is not watchful, foreign nations that are not pleased with their political stance will also attempt to pressure them.
in that resolution, there are some points that are very dangerous. The first one is that they don't recognize the election. We don't have any problem with the OAS because we renounce to the OAS. Now they want to expel Venezuela to the OAS, but the thing is that we already renounce to the OAS. But in the point number 8 is very, very dangerous also for the region. All right, and in this regard, the representative of San Vincent and the Grenadines, Mr. Camilo Gonzalez, was very hard to try to avoid this point and criticize this point. The point say to call upon the member and observer state to implement in accordance with their respective legal frameworks applicable international law.
Ambassador Santana said that the real intention is to get at Venezuela's oil reserves.
If you don't recognize a president, you just have to, retire your diplomatic representative there. Why they still are doing business with them? For example, United States, we have a refinery in the United States. They want to take the refinery, but they are this is impossible by law. This is impossible by law. So these sanctions are against the people, and they want to produce. They want to produce an artificial humanitarian crisis. Artificial humanitarian crisis that allowed them to intervene in Venezuela. It's the excuse to intervene in Venezuela. And remember that the President Trump last year said that they are prepared to do a military intervention in Venezuela. So it's very dangerous. It's very. We have to be very careful with that statement that the Trump.
Officials within the Ministry of Economic Planning have looked within for the expertise needed to plan and conduct the 2018 Country Poverty Assessment, the CPA, which began in March this year. At a news conference Wednesday, Director of Economic Planning Laura Anthony Brown said on previous occasions the assessment was managed by non-nationals, but now a local team of statisticians, economists and social analysts are making the exercise, which is a comprehensive poverty study on the characteristic, extent, causes and impacts of poverty.
All of the field work was done by Vincentian enumerators, and our statistical office was very much involved, but the overall management of the process and the production of the report was done by this firm. We do have in our Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning some of the best trained and accomplished statisticians, economists and social analysts in the region that established a broad-based committee drawn from the public and private sector, including the opposition party. We believe with the oversight of this committee, with careful management and monitoring, that we would be able to deliver this enhanced CPA on time and within budget.
Anthony Brown said that technical and financial support is also being provided by the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB, and the OECS Secretariat for the exercise, which is costing some 1.8 million EC dollars.
The largest single item, as you can well imagine, is the field work. We have hired and we will continue to hire after we have trained enumerators and supervisors and people who would go out into the field and who will go to the selected homes. So once you have been selected in the sample, our enumerators will go to the homes of the selected persons to collect the information. So that is the biggest item of finance in the budget, but of course there are many other little bits and pieces which add up to the $1.8 million.
Chief Statistician Gatlin Roberts said 1,800 households were randomly selected to undergo questioning, and she has given the assurance that there is no need to worry about providing the data required.
The questionnaire is not only administered in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it is a common questionnaire being used within the OAS. So from island to island, at the end of the day, we are going to be able to favorably compare the questionnaire. St. Vincent is probably the first country to begin the process. So as the year go by, other countries will come on board, but we will have the very same questionnaire.
Epidemiologist Tamara Bob has called for more to be done to curb access to cigarettes and other tobacco products in order to protect the health of the public and particularly the youth. Bob, who was speaking at a tobacco awareness session on Tuesday, said that while statistics from a recently concluded survey indicate that tobacco smoking is not particularly prevalent in SVG, more persons are beginning to smoke at a younger age. She therefore called for measures to be put in place to ensure young people do not have easy access to cigarettes.
12.2% current smokers. The majority of smokers are men. We see that Vincentians start smoking at an earlier age compared to past generations. If we look at the results from the GYTS, as just mentioned, 31% of secondary school students reported ever smoking, and 19.4% are currently using tobacco products. So it's very important that we look at curbing access to tobacco products in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Dr. Dell Hamilton, a medical consultant, said data from the survey indicates that the youth are attracted to cigarettes because of a desire to be attractive and popular. She stressed the need for them to be educated on the harmful effects of smoking.
And I wonder, when we smoke and we develop the cancers which are going to take our lives at an earlier stage, we'll have to go and leave our friends. When we smoke, we also develop a lot of wrinkling and other things. You'll see dry skin. So it actually is making you more making you unattractive. So we really need to let our young people know, with respect to the reasons they smoke, that smoking actually is counterproductive in that area.
Dr. Hamilton said that other countries have implemented bans and this has produced positive results. She felt there is need for a total ban on the use of cigarettes in public places in SVG.
It's been found that there should be no exception and no designated smoking areas, because the smoke leaks out of smoking rooms into the other areas. Exemptions create unequal protection, and exemptions create compliance and enforcement difficulties. So these would be some of the issues that would be discussed as St. Vincent moves towards putting smoking ban with respect to indoor smoking in public places.
The Rotary Club of St. Vincent on Thursday held its annual George Phillips Awards for Excellence, which saw a number of fourth form students recognized for their hard work and determination in academic and extracurricular activities. Describing the late George Phillips as a man who was passionate about education, President of the club, Leila Constantine, commended the students for their drive to achieve excellence in all they do.
Your efforts and experiences in secondary school will mold you for the next step in your lives. Don't take anything for granted and try to turn every experience you have into a learning experience. It's okay to have a pity party and to get it out of your system, but do not dwell in that party. Get out, dust yourself off, and create a new plan. And never forget the lessons you learned along the way. To the parents and teachers, thank you for taking the time to mold these young minds. Continue to be patient with them and feed them with positivity. Comfort them in their times of doubt and give them a gentle push when you know they can do better.
Education officer responsible for secondary schools, K. Martin Jack, thanked the Rotary Club of St. Vincent for seeing the need to recognize and award academic excellence in a tangible way. She also encouraged the students to remain focused and true to themselves.
It's only right and fitting that in a learning community like ours, we take pride in what we accomplish and contribute individually, and take pride in what others have done, as their accomplishments serve as both inspiration and motivation. Continue to exhibit determination and maintain a laser-sharp focus when you encounter challenges. As eagles, you must be willing to get a little scorched if you are to achieve greatness. Stay true to who you are as an individual. Work extremely hard and smartly. Have the drive to excel and be a lifelong learner.
In her feature address, Senior Operations Officer at First Citizens Investment Services, Tamelia Providence, assured the students that it was normal for them to not be clear about a career path at this stage. She, however, encouraged them to focus on what they are doing at present.
You're going to be retiring in the year 2068. Let that soak in for a second. 2068. Can you honestly tell me that right now you know what you're going to be doing for the next 50 years of your life? You live in a time where there are so many more opportunities. Not only are more and more persons pursuing higher education, but there are thousands of majors available to you now and careers that didn't even exist 10 years ago. To encourage all of you to remember to have fun. Yes, your education is important, and I understand the desire to be successful. But it's just as important to have some downtime. You won't know what you like if you don't try it.
Neighborhood watch groups play an important role in helping to curb crime, and the RSVG police force is looking to revive them in communities across the nation. That's the word from Deputy Commissioner of Police Frankie Joseph, who told SVG-TV News that with such support from neighbors, criminals are less likely to target communities.
And one of the things that it is so important that neighborhood watch groups are formed, in that if there is a neighborhood watch group in a community, criminals will never know who is watching. It is going to be always at the back of their mind that somebody is watching because there is a neighborhood watch group. Yeah, so it is very, very important that we revive all our neighborhood watch group and we get them up and running.
Police Commissioner Colin John encouraged persons to be more alert about their surroundings, including when using their mobile phones.
Vehicle might pass, other person might pass, and they might not even be able to identify who that person is. So I'm really encouraging persons. I know they need to communicate, and sometimes it may be essential, but you should always be alert as to your surrounding. And sometimes in most cases, when things are not looking right, it is definitely not right. So you should be able to be alert and able to do things to mitigate the risk against yourself.
And Assistant Superintendent Hezron Ballantyne has suggested that businesses should implement measures to protect their employees.
I would advise the business owners to put in place some mechanisms, such as a driver with a vehicle to ensure transportation, to ensure that these workers who are leaving their businesses at late at night to get home safe. It will be utmost important to know that they are leaving at a particular time and make sure that they get home and get back to work more so that they can produce for themselves.
In more police news, Deputy Commissioner Frankie Joseph is encouraging patrons of Carnival shows at the Victoria Park to leave their vehicles in well-lit areas to avoid break-ins. Joseph, who was speaking with SVG-TV News yesterday, said the police usually has a good presence in the Victoria Park, Wilson Hill area, which has seen surveillance that several vehicles break-ins in the past.
What have been happening also, there are some persons who would come to Kingston to patronize these shows, and somehow they would refuse to utilize the car park, and as a result they would park in areas that are not well lit, you know, that you would find that people would not be frequenting, you know, those areas where they are parked, and as a result of that, that creates the opportunity where criminals would easily go to break these vehicles and actually remove stuff. So it is always better to be safe than to be sorry. These park in well-lit areas, and as I said, the area Wilson Hill.
Police Commissioner Colin John said persons attending shows tend to avoid parking to save money, but reminded them that it is often more costly to repair a damaged vehicle after breaking.
If a vehicle is broken into, the cost of repairing the window might be in excess of $300. So it's like being penny-wise and pound-foolish. It's the safety of your vehicle should be a concern when going to those shows as well. It doesn't make sense you pay that amount of money and then when you, after enjoying the show, you have some stress because you have to repair the window for your vehicle. And some of these vehicles, depending on the type, it might be even difficult to access the part.
Commissioner John also encouraged the public not to keep valuables in their vehicles.
I just want to also encourage persons, do not leave valuables and things like that exposed in the vehicle, because persons may see a bag in the vehicle and might be curious as to what may be in that bag. So they may break a window for that vehicle in order to get into that vehicle to get that bag. So that's two offenses that the police would be given to investigate. The offense of damage to property, which is the damage to the vehicle, and the offense of theft of the bag or whatever property may be in that vehicle. 15
female Calypsonians are set to go head-to-head tonight for the title of the 2018 Queen of Calypso. The once highly contested contest returns from a 16-year hiatus, and the president of the SVG Calypso Association, the SVG-CA, Earl Cabot Bennett, has promised patrons an extraordinary showcase with performances from Calypso veterans and debutants. The 15 finalists will appear at tonight's show in this order: Sylvan Royal Gem Lavia, Doing Strong Like Wall; Sheena Collis, Come Guide Me; Sasha Patience Rogers, Man Up; Chanel McKenzie, Life Isn't Fair; Cleopatra Hendrickson, Common Sense; Romina Lady Rolly Matthews, Women Empowerment; Marvo Lady Marvo Morgan, Afraid to Talk; Cecile Littlebit King, Different from the Start; Mariah Young Sire Robertson, Minivan Lovers; Bria Matthias, Our Health, Our Wealth; Denise Lady D. Stevens, Only P; Felicia Nubian Empress Alexander, Dirty Clothes Online; Joanna Nubian Princess Christopher, Everything Gone Up; Christiana Singing Christy Christopher, Changed the Face of Vincy Mass; and Sherika Liverpool Richards, Is Carnival. The event is slated to begin at 8 p.m. sharp at the Russell Auditorium.